Hey everyone, I'm Adam Orth. Welcome to the Game Maker's Notebook. Today I'm speaking with Tim Willits, Chief Creative Officer of Saber Interactive. On today's episode, we discuss how Tim went from the shareware modding community to a level designer in the early days of id Software, the development of iconic franchises like Doom and Quake, and the lessons he's learned from his 23-year run at the company, perfecting the Space Marine core gameplay loop before building anything else in the game, how Saber worked closely with Games Workshop to deliver the ultimate Warhammer franchise expectations, and finally fostering young development teams to make consistently better games under the Saber umbrella. Hope you enjoy.
Later! We've got more incoming from the east! Give them no ground! Angels! We're saved! Brothers, we fight! For Ultima! We will cover your approach. Victory or death. Suffer the wrath of Ultima, Hellspawn. In his name, I will fight. If we die with vengeance on our lips!
Hey Tim, welcome to the Game Maker's Notebook.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure to have you here. I personally have actually never met you in my long game career, but we've got a ton of mutual friends, and I have played so many games that you've worked on, and a lot of them are really important to me in terms of um, you know development as a developer, but also just you know your list of the things that you did at id is longer than all of our arms combined.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I've had a blessed career. Yes, I'm very happy. I joke with people that I have the best career in the world. Like in the updated Game of Life, they've changed some professions, and one of the professions is video game designer. So
Really?
yes, so I landed into a dream job. So thank you.
Yeah, it's truly impressive. So, now you're the chief creative officer at Saber Interactive, which is, a very well respected worldwide publisher and developer. Got a bunch of studios under the Saber umbrella, and you guys are publishing and developing games with original and licensed IP.
Mhm.
Tons of cool stuff. Obviously, we're going to talk about Space Marine 2 today. But there's also Jurassic Park, Ghostbusters, A Quiet Place, Evil Dead, World War Z, and on and on and on and on. It's quite a roster of amazing IP to work with, which I'm going to assume was one of the reasons you stepped away from this amazing career at id, where you were formerly a designer, producer, director, co-owner, studio director. Like you did everything there, and as we said, it's quite impressive. I've gone down the list multiple times, collating all the research for this episode, and there's just so many titles that are really cool. But the things I wanted to point out, just as touchstones for me personally, design on Quake, which is my favorite video game of all time. lead designer on Doom 3. I could do a whole podcast on Doom 3. That game is incredible.
We should do that sometime.
Yes, we absolutely should. EP on Quake 4, another great game. Creative director on Rage, studio director on Rage 2. Tons and tons of stuff that's not only meaningful to the game industry and gamers, but also like lots of really important zeitgeisty pop culture things in there. So, as you say, you do have the greatest job, the greatest career. Quite charmed. And there's a lot to talk about today. But I usually like to start these episodes off with going back to the beginning, actually, to your childhood, and trying to understand what the spark and the seed was to get you where you're sitting today and what you're doing today. And it's really, really, I think I like to find that out and follow that thread through the career.
Yes.
So how did this all start for you? Like where did creativity and games and the understanding that you could make games as a career come from?
So there's really kind of two kind of reference points, I think. One is, my dad was always kind of very techie, kind of nerdy. Apples don't fall far from the tree. And, he actually bought one of those Heathkit computers where they send them in parts and you build them. And it had, like 4K bytes of RAM or some crazy thing. I mean, maybe, yeah, it's very small. And then you had, straight basic, but there was no way to save, so we could learn to kind of program in basic and, make some text things. And then, but as soon as you turn the computer off, it was gone. But so computers have always been very fascinating. I've always really loved computers, and part of my degree at the university was computer science. I did learn in computer science that I cannot program. That's the thing that I learned in computer science class. And then my brother, who was 6 years older than I am, he used to play Dungeons and Dragons when it was actually real, and back then. And so what I thought was really cool is all the modules. And there would be a new kind of campaign, and I saw my brother would draw on grid paper. So I thought that was really fascinating to kind of draw these modules on grid paper and pretend that I was creating this kind of world. So I always like to kind of create environments and worlds and things, and and I do kind of have a I can visualize things really well. Once in university, I went to one of those freshman, places where they experiment on you, where they do the like psychology experiments. And I had to put all these blocks together. And the woman said, "I've never seen anyone put the blocks together so fast." And so I've been very proud of that one saying. So, so then in 93, the end, early 94, when the original Doom was released. And I had a new computer at the time, and I was downloading shareware, and I thought Doom was so incredible. And even when I was stuck in the little room, the very first room, because I couldn't figure out how to get the door open, it was such a great game. But then when I learned that people could make their own levels, I was like, I can do infinite. I can build whatever I want. I can, and back then it was, when you looked at the original Doom, you were looking at reality, and I was like, you can build anything. So I was really fascinated with that. And then, so I would look at, so there wasn't much of an internet in 94, and there was BBSs. So software creations BBS is where I was. There's what was CompuServe, where a bunch of other kind of Doom guys were, and then software creations BBS. So I started uploading my levels that I made for Doom to software creations BBS, and people would would text me back and say, "This is really fun." So I thought this is great. And then I did that for a while. And id Software was looking for contractors to work on the Doom 2 Masters Edition. So they contacted me, which was like, this is amazing. Yeah, and they paid me to make some levels, and I was like, this is awesome. And I was in college at the time, and then they were looking for real level designers, full time level designers. So I got the dream job, and my parents were like, "You gonna move to Texas and do what?" I just started out as just a normal kind of level designer. But I think there was only like a handful of us in the industry, regardless of there's like the build engine, and then there was us, but there weren't many guys that got hired into the profession making levels, and there was a very small group of us. So I started out just making levels as a contractor for id, and then I was hired, and in March '95, and the rest is history.
Yeah, so you're at id for 23 plus years. You know,
Long time. Yes,
it,
yes. I used to joke that I only had one job.
yeah,
And you're right. I could have, I loved working there. I loved the games. I loved the people. Bethesda was great, because we were bought by Bethesda. So yes, I could have stayed there forever and been very happy, but uh, but with, but I had nothing else to really prove, after, in 2019.
well, let's talk about that a little, because
Sure.
I definitely don't want you to gloss over this this
Well, yes.
this huge kind of impact that that you've had on the industry. Um, I it's you actually kind of forget how many things it has made until you actually
Yes.
look at the
Small company,
list.
big footprint.
Yeah, it's truly impressive, because when you think about it, you think about the legacy, but that list is so huge and so long. I mean,
The influence,
the
like what
influence.
like there's a talk that I have given in the past where Doom is critical, to our industry, and it started a lot of things. But if you look at the industry today, I actually think Quake 1 was more impactful. And the fact that you can actually have that argument goes to show you that both Doom and Quake really just started so much. And
Yeah, I think
yes.
I'd be on your side with about Quake being, I think, maybe even more influential
Mhm.
than Doom, and that's also an entire other podcast. But
Mhm.
I want to talk about like how you started moving through the company on all these different projects, because it truly does kind of set up for what you're doing today at Saber.
Mhm.
And um, I want to try to understand your path through id for all those years, because you touched so many interesting things. Like, for example, like, you know design on Quake, all the way up to studio director for the Doom reboot.
Mhm.
And like both of those games, like for me personally, are like huge bookends of quality and you know best in class video game stuff. But like, what was it like in the beginning for you at id, where you kind of like, I'm sure by osmosis you took in the tenets of the company as they
Mhm.
were probably forming, I'm guessing.
Yes.
And how did you carry those in your work as designer, lead designer, producer, like all the things that you've done throughout the company? Like, how did you bring those around to all these other amazing games, and kind of put your touch on those things?
The you know try working hard, trying to
Yeah.
be, trying not to like make any major mistakes. The We were always really small. Like I think we were 12 people when I got hired, and I believe 12, yes. And obviously we had John Carmack, who's a genius. There's a whole week worth of podcasts talk about him. The uh, and he always wanted to push technology and innovation, and every game we made with new technology, which is very difficult. I used to joke that if we made Doom 3 with Quake 3 technology, we would have had it done, in half the time. Um, the But just working hard and experimenting and not being afraid to make mistakes. I joke that every 10 ideas I have, 9 are bad, but that one idea, is golden. Um, so yeah, and we just kind of, it was a lot of moving through or up. My responsibilities was just through necessity. We when we were making Quake, we had no idea what we were doing. Make no mistake, half the stuff that we came up with, it was shotgun approach. We had no planning. We didn't even have a producer like at id, a real producer, until Doom 3. We didn't even have the concept.
Sounds like heaven.
And so it was. We were all kind of Swiss Army knives, and we just had to, work hard and do what needed to be done. I was never afraid to put a video card in my computer. I was never afraid to do testing. I was never afraid to play the entire Quake 1 with a Grievous gamepad. And, and you just have to be, willing to do anything.
Yeah. So true startup mentality.
Yes. Yes. But you can never, I say that, and I've seen this before, when game developers leave the trenches, they can never get back in. So, you always need to be in development trenches. So even as my position now, I still try hard to stay in the trenches. Because I've seen it. I've seen really talented folks, guys that did amazing stuff, and they leave the trenches and they do something else, and they just cannot get back in, and never really are able to recapture that.
I mean, that hits me personally really hard, because I struggle with that too. And I'm personally like in the creative director VP area, have been for a while, and I miss that. I miss, like, there's some days where I'm like, I would just rather be at a desk in the editor, setting up encounters with my headphones on and just doing that all day.
Yes.
Cause that's how we all started. And, you do take career paths and you do things like that, but it's very, very hard to get back in the trenches. And, it's also, sometimes also not advisable too. Like, it's a double-edged sword, because, we have all seen the executive who wants to get back in the trenches, and when it doesn't go well.
No, because they left.
Right.
That's the problem. You can't leave.
Right. It's like, you can't go back to high school almost.
No, and you need to stay in there forever. But but I also believe that the best video game company executives came up making stuff, real stuff. Your artists, designers, programmers. That is those people who then become the boss. Those are the ones you put the most faith in.
Yeah, I personally started in QA and worked all the way through the design track. And
so
I always, I mean, that you're speaking the truth. Like, that is a proven truthful statement that will never not be true. And it's challenging today, because there are executives who have not made things, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're good or bad, but it's certainly not without its challenges. And
yes,
you have to,
because you can see things a mile away that are going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And you sense them, can't you?
Yeah.
Yes. And that is where your skill set, that which makes you valuable.
Being able to see the smoke that's definitely going to turn into a fire.
Hmm.
is a really valuable skill set for any developer. And um, I think that it's always best to be surrounded by people who have made things and continue to make things. Um,
Yes, 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 yes. So yes, at the success at id, obviously, let's start with Carmack and then go down
yeah,
from there. But but it was a whole bunch of guys. We'll just say guys at the time, a whole bunch of people that were all really smart, all talented, and had the same goal: make something cool. We just wanted to make cool stuff, and if you just want to make cool stuff and you work hard and you surround yourself with people that are like minded, you are going to get something cool. And
yeah.
yes,
I
but
think
there's not
I think
much. There was not much more planning than that. I'll be honest. There was not much more planning. You know.
Well, I think that that's how the best things go. It's like you have a group of driven people who want to accomplish something together, and once you start doing that, it's kind of out of your hands. It just takes on
Yes.
a life of
Yes.
its own.
And
And
not
I
and
would,
not too many people. I know.
yeah, yeah,
Yes, that's
really
yes.
small.
Yeah, you got to be small because then you can react and be agile and test and iterate. You can grow once you have the formula. If you want to make Call of Duty games that are amazing every year, you can. They have a formula. They grew. That's what they do. But you can't reinvent something with that many people all the time.
It's funny when you see like today, like it's like, oh well, we'll just make like a game like Call of Duty, and not understanding that that's a 25-year endeavor
Yes.
that actually started before Call of Duty. Like
Yes.
it's like it takes that small group of
Yes.
people in that genesis to get to what Call of Duty is today.
Yes, and you
Um,
need very specific people. Like at id, we had a controller guy. That was literally his
yeah,
job to make it feel good, and that's why when you play the new Doom games, it feels so good. And this the way that's one guy. We
yeah.
had one guy that led the boss battles. We had one person that was in charge of very specific, glory kill and animations, but they built up that skill set over time. So you can't take and find all those people, even if they pull them from different companies. You can't stick them all together and actually get something that's amazing. You have to like grow and that's why we see big studios with these AAA folks that collapse because they
Oh
have the
wait,
talent. It takes
don't
them
get
working
into that.
together.
I'm saving that for
Oh,
later. I
sorry.
got a whole section on that. I really want to talk to you about that.
Yes,
But
small, small and agile.
I will say that I remember going and visiting Rocksteady when they were making their first Batman game, and they like actually had a guy who just worked on the cape,
Yep.
and that's one thing that's super important to that game. And you remember that, like, and when it came out, everyone talked about the cape and the legend of the guy who made the cape.
Hmm.
And that's actually that type of dedication and specialty that makes games great.
Hmm.
So when you talk about a small group and you're making Quake, when I think about Quake, it's just kind of like the best of the best at the time, but it also stands up today still. There's so
Yes.
many interesting things. I've probably played that. I can't count how many times I've played through that game, but it's always engaging and interesting and unique every time. And I just want to try to, it's been gone over a lot, but probably more Doom than Quake. But what was the thought process like when you guys were sitting down and making that game? Because it's got this mixture of like medieval and combat, and it's like
Yes.
it's not a combination where you would automatically think yes, but
Yes.
the way it comes together, where like the medieval stuff actually isn't corny, and it like totally fits in with that style of you know modern gameplay and weapons and things like that. Like, what was that like trying that stuff out?
Yes, I mean, again, I was just the new kid there, but we had no plan. I mean, come on, people tend to do the last game they made. So yes, there were ideas, that I knew that the team had to make it, different than Doom. But man, you just fall right back. Like you fall into what you know well, and the reason that the textures all work well because there was two artists, Kevin Cloud and Adrian Carmack, that made all the textures and the models and the for the weapons, and of course um, the enemies. And then the designers, we were just making stuff that we thought was cool. And once somebody on the team made a cool level, or they had like a theme or style, we were like, oh, that's cool. Let's make more of that. And another designer's like, I like these textures, and this is kind of helping. That's cool. Okay, let's make that. So we had all these different themes, styles, and then we kind of put it all together at the end. And you have like the hub with the slip gates with the different styles, and then you jumped, which was just more like the personality of the level designer at the time.
Mhm.
Let's be honest, but it all worked because there was a handful of us. One person did majority of an episode. We had two artists, we had a handful of programmers, one sound guy. I mean, working with Trent, and but the so it was just. It was, few people just kind of made everything kind of fit together, even though it was objectively bonkers. Like it's objectively bonkers. If someone came to me today with a pitch that was going to be like, I want these just four different worlds and medieval and this nail gun with this, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I'm good, thanks. No,
Yeah,
you're
not
crazy.
publishing that.
Yes, you are all crazy. Goodbye. But we made it work. Because it was fun. It was so fun. The reason
Yeah.
that the default deathmatch was set to 10 is because Carmack got irritated that we kept playing deathmatch too much. So he just coded it to 10. We could only play to 10. So whenever we wanted to test something, we tested, but we were having so much fun. It was just fun. It was fun to play. And that is what drove it all. And I keep telling these teams now, you've got to find the fun faster. And then everything you build from that point forward is easy. Just today, I had a conversation with a developer working on a game we haven't announced yet, but it's really cool. But they're building way too many levels before they really understand how to make one fun. And they're like, oh, no, we'll fix it later. No, you can never fix it later. Fixing it later causes more problems and headaches. You've got to find the fun as quick as humanly possible. And then everything else you build, you know how to build it because you already have the fun.
Yeah, rinse and repeat.
Yes.
Yeah.
But people forget that because they get so focused on we got to finish these levels, we got to make all this content, we have these milestones, we got to hit the deliverables. It's like, no, stop. Make the game fun. Look at Space Marine 2. The team spent so long just trying to get the animations perfect. And nobody was building any levels. And the animations and the combat was perfect. And then once the team knew how that worked, building the levels was way easier.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that because definitely there's definitely I noticed a method of how the game, playing through Space Marine 2, and I noticed all of that type of work.
Yes.
Very,
So in Quake
very well
1,
done.
we got deathmatch was fun. And then everything else was easy.
I mean, there's so many cool things about Quake. I don't want to talk about it forever, but a couple things. Like, I mean, even today when I play it, I still get that thrill and that rush of finding that first Nin crate. I mean, it's just like, that's such a huge, huge moment in the game. And I remember when Quake came out, I was living in Hawaii at the time, and I stayed inside for 3 days playing that game on a laptop that could barely do it. But it was
like that's Pentium 60 or something.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't even remember what it would be at this point, but I remember playing it standing up at a kitchen counter for days. I loved it. Was there any ever talk about rebooting Quake?
Yes. There was. I had talked to Todd Vaughn, who was the head of development, who I believe is still there at Bethesda, before I left, and we had many conversations about it. So hopefully someone does it. I think there's there's so much talent, especially now with other studios that are in the Bethesda, world, and now that it is, is part of Microsoft with that
Yeah.
acquisition. So I know nothing. I promise,
Yeah.
I know nothing. I want to put that out there.
Yes, we're
Tim
not
Willits
we're not
as
digging for
future,
dirt here.
yes, but I think it's time, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
again, listen, one thing that always irritated me is like it was always annoying when ex id software people would talk about games that we should be making or how the next game should be. So I'll never say that because it always irritated me. But I would like to see it someday.
Yes,
I
me
can
too.
say I can say that
Yeah,
polite. Yeah,
first one in the door to buy it, for
definitely.
sure. Uh,
Yes.
Another thing I want to touch on, not spend too much time on it, but is Doom 3. Doom 3 I thought was another really incredible game, personally for me, but I know I remember when it came out, it was like both critically acclaimed and also attacked, and just like um, a very vocal kind of
Hmm.
crowd around that
Yes.
game. I just thought it was so amazingly cool to do four-person multiplayer. That was just so much fun, and it really changed the way you think about that game. Obviously, um, the tech that you guys brought forward was
Making Doom 3
incredible.
was so hard. It was so incredibly difficult. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. But I love the game. It's one. I have a giant Doom 3 poster there, and I don't have many posters on my wall. The
A special game.
everything everything that we made in Doom 3 was new. The way that lighting works was new. Every texture had a height map, bump map, specular, new. The way that we worked with shaders, new.
The
And
computer
the scripting,
screens.
new. I mean, we couldn't even hire artists because no one ever done what we were doing. I mean, and putting that all together, and with the real time lighting, and then I mean, it was so incredibly difficult to make. It really, truly was difficult, but it was amazing. Like it still looks great. You can load it up right now.
Yep.
You can play that game, and it looks amazing, and it's still
Yeah.
fun. And yes, you're right. Some people loved it, some people hated it, but I would much rather have people talking about your game than it come out and no one cares.
Exactly.
Yes, if no one hates your game, then that's sad.
I think I think um, just the perceived, I'll say perceived because it wasn't for me, but like the controversy over the flashlight was just like,
Yes, yes, and the
like
reality was, is I would have loved to have left the flashlight on the whole time because but it couldn't. Wasn't fast enough.
yeah, yeah,
Like too many dynamic lights would slow the computer down. So that's why when we did the BFG edition, we just left the light on. Because
yeah,
computers are faster.
yeah.
But that was the sole reason. The sole reason was because the game ran too damn slow.
It's so funny because consumers never really get those stories, or don't really understand why a lot of those decisions were made. And there's so many decisions made in game making that are um, technology based that end up
Hmm.
becoming features, or things like that, that really a lot of times give games their personality. It's like when you're
Yes,
the whole thing about being creative with limitations,
yes,
and finding the solutions
hmm
there is where the magic comes. All
yes.
right, so then,
But when you play that game at night with your high end computer,
oh yeah,
it
forget
was the
it.
best thing ever. It was awesome.
Yeah, forget it.
Yes.
So you did a bunch of more stuff. Rage was great. I love both Rage games. Thank you for those. Um, but eventually, something must have changed because you left the company
Hmm.
after what we've said, an incredible run.
Yes.
A lot of people
Uh,
wouldn't do that. A lot of
well,
people would stay. So you were obviously looking for something else, scratching an itch. What was it? How did it happen?
um, Yeah, I mean like I said earlier, I love the people. I love working there. I mean, look at my office. It's all id related. Heck, I'm sitting on a Quake chair. Look at that. Um, and the chair is a little broken, and I don't want to replace it because I don't know what this like. I'd be sad if my Quake chair was gone. So I had nothing more to prove. I made great games. I had great friends. I felt like I was successful, and so, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna, I met Matt and Andre, the two guys that own Saber. We worked on Quake Champions together, and they were, looking to grow the company. They were looking for an acquisition. They had Andre Ionis is a great um, operations officer. Matt Karsh is a great CEO, but they kind of need that creative person in that triangle. They needed a triangle. They had a line, and it's easier to sell and grow a triangle than a line. And so, I joined them, and we sold to Embracer pretty quickly. We grew organically and through acquisitions, and now we bought ourselves back. But what I love is I get to work on an amazing amount of games. And, I could have stayed at id and made first person shooters forever. But I mean, I get to work on SnowRunner. It's literally a game about driving trucks through mud. And like 15 million people played this game. We would release sports games. We had basketball, like, the NBA playgrounds, WWE. We had our football game. And we have sim games. We have action games, license, like you said. So every day I get to think about and work on something new. I mean, today I worked on a horror game, an action game, and a survival game. That was before this call. And then afterwards, I have to have another call to work on a first person shooter, which we haven't announced yet. And so it's so amazing, and everything is so new. So it's just, and I love just, working on so many different games with all these different teams, but I can take lessons learned, just like I've been saying, just like examples I've been throwing out in this talk. Take those lessons learned about finding the fun, focus on the core experience, making sure your team isn't too big, and apply those to every genre. The lessons that I've learned from making Quake 3 can be applied to SnowRunner. You have to make a mental hurdle to get there, but there's some things there. So that's what I try to do with the teams, kind of apply things that I've gone through and lessons that I've learned on these games and how they can apply to the games that they're working on. Plus selfishly, the teams do tend to listen to me more, not all the time, but they tend to listen to me more because of my past. So it's nice to, if you're going to swing a hammer at an idea, make sure you have the strength to really make an impact.
Yeah. So the path that you kind of bounced around on at id actually really perfectly sets you up at Saber.
Yes. So every day I lean on my experiences.
What is your understanding of these kind of tumultuous industry times in terms of how Saber is signing games or picking games up now that you're independent again? I mean, that was a whole saga in its own right. And how fortunate that you guys are able to buy yourselves back and kind of continue the mission. Like, how did you guys navigate that? And like, when you're come out of it, like, how did those lessons change the way you guys are doing your business? Because as a publisher, it's not stable ground today in the game industry,
No.
probably less stable than it's ever been. And you guys have a big library. You're doing a bunch of stuff, announced and unannounced. Like it's a delicate dance to get all that right today. How is that? How have you found that since kind of winning back your independence?
So, well, so far the first game we released was Space Marine 2 after we, so that's been working well for us. But
Indeed.
uh, but it's just, again, it's hard to distill it down to broad stroke comments. But, we, our strategy at Saber is to, focus on, games with the widest appeal, which is why licenses work well. World War Z is a zombie shooter game, but people, oh, I saw that movie, I read that book. Oh, this is a fun game. Um, you know, uh, Keep your team sizes reasonable, smart. Okay. Focus on development in territories around the world where it is cheaper. There you can find the smartest engineer anywhere on the planet. You don't have to have 300 people in California, and I'm not picking on California, but you don't have to have 300 people in California in one room to make a great game. Um, and uh, and focus on finding the fun. You know, and we have different size games. For instance, like last week we shipped A Quiet Place, which is it's reasonably priced. Like nobody's complaining about it, that's overpriced. It has a movie license attached to it that everybody knows. Everyone knows exactly what the game. If you've never played a video game, you know what A Quiet Place video game design is.
Yep.
Don't get from point A to B. Don't make any sound. And we worked with Stormmine, which is a younger team, and we made a reasonably good game. It's revealing fine exactly where we thought. It's a reasonably sized team, reasonably priced game, and is reasonably well. That will get you on base. And then you have your home runs with like Space Marine 2 is a home run. God willing, Jurassic Park home run. Um, but we use our team smartly. Like for instance, there's a lot of people peeling off of Space Marine 2 and jumping on Jurassic Park and Toxic Commando. Um, and a lot of times, developers they focus on one game. So they have 200 people in the studio, they make a game, and then 200 people work on the next game. But everybody knows there's a ramp up and ramp down. Ramp down. You do not need 200 people during pre-production. You do not need 200 people to make a vertical slice. You are only going to cause problems. So we,
That's just a
all of
recipe for disaster.
it is, and that's how a lot of these North American developers work.
I mean,
They're like, well,
I've been on those teams, right? Like,
yes,
making big games. Thankfully, in the design track, you're kind of needed in the beginning to move it through, but like 100, 200, 300 people sitting around doing nothing while you're figuring out
yes.
level design
When your burn
methodologies.
rate is
Yeah.
$2 million a month, okay, and you and in 3 months you decided to change something, you've blown $6 million. You know, that's like that's more than SnowRunner cost to make, and SnowRunner has 15 million people have played it. Um, so the uh, so you just so we are smart about that kind of stuff. We try to have every studio have at least two games that they're working on, and we also try to make a culture where employees are okay to move to different games. It's not like A team and B team. It's not like I'm on the A team. I don't want to work on that game because that's a B team game. That's important. I've I've seen studios get into that. Like, well, I work on this franchise. I'm not working on what? No, you got to nip that early. And find the fun fast. Focus on scope your game out correctly. A Quiet Place is tightly scoped. It wasn't that expensive to make. You play it, you're like, yeah, it was cool. But it's scoped and the team size fits it. Space Marine is way bigger, and the team size fits it. And then you you work around the world in places that honestly are just more affordable. I know it sounds bad and or cold maybe, but it's just the reality of business.
I mean, I wouldn't say it sounds bad or cold. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It is the reality of money and time and manpower. The pandemic certainly leveled things out a bit where um, you know you are not um, geo fenced with
Hmm.
developers anymore. Simply doesn't matter. Um, you know,
But I
I
will.
personally started my day on a call with people in Stockholm, and now I'm going to be on a
Mhm.
call with people in New Zealand. Like it's just there's no um, there's kind of no more rules in that aspect, because in the pursuit of everything that you're talking about, which is smartly scoped games, smaller teams, the best people you can find for the best amount of
For the
value,
best price.
for the best price. I mean,
And I know that sounds
it
trivial,
is the game business, though. It's the
but it
game
isn't. Yes,
business. It's a
but it's more
business, and
complicated.
it's
Yes,
much more complicated than friends making games together. Um, you know,
yes. But also just but to add to what you said about remote work, and yes, the what I'm about to say, sitting in my office at home, is irony. But we are a good test case for back to work cultures around the world, because with Embracer, we worked with all these, 30 different countries. And the development teams that are able to get a good chunk of people physically together have done better, So, we have a hybrid system with our studios, which every smart person company is doing now. But
it's
where
truly the best way.
you get in, you get together for a couple of days. Everyone gets their assignments, their tasks, then they can work by themselves. And then you have a handful of people like yourself. You need to work with someone in Europe and someone in New Zealand. So you're a unique person. You have your unique people like that you sprinkle in. But when you can get that team physically together a couple of days a week, as many people as you can, the more success you'll actually have. And I do worry. It's been an improvement, but I do worry that us Americans really like this work from home business, and we're really pushing to stay home more, and we do need to get back together in person more, in my opinion. Not all the time. I'm not saying we're crazy, but you need that together time.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I've probably been working from home or in a hybrid model since about, I don't know, 2015 myself.
Yeah.
And um I do miss um I do miss being in a room with people at times. I just went and visited a team in Stockholm, and it was so productive being in the room with them.
Hmm.
I do believe that the hybrid system is the best way. I think that what you described about coming together, kind of understanding the marching orders, solving some problems,
Hmm.
having some, real human interaction, and then
Hmm.
everyone goes off and does their thing. I think what a lot of people don't really talk about that the pandemic brought, um, well, the workforce of the world, but we're only talking about game development, is this idea of trusting the people that you've hired, um, instead of just viewing them as a number on a spreadsheet, or um, you know a cog in the wheel or a person in the trench. Like, you know it's important to hire people and give them agency and trust them to do the special magic that you hired them for.
Hmm.
And while nobody wanted the pandemic, it actually changed the way, I think, in my opinion, the way we work and the way we
Hmm.
value our teams, because
Hmm.
it becomes pretty apparent it became pretty apparent during the pandemic when you weren't around with that special person that you needed to be, but they were still delivering from home, right?
Hmm.
And I just think it's kind of sad that we had to go through the pandemic to get to the point of really trust your people. And I'm not saying that studios didn't do that before the pandemic, but
Yes. Yes,
you know,
I
if
know
you're
what you're
in the
saying.
AAA system, it wasn't like that before. And I just feel like that was a benefit of that. It came, and I've noticed that in all the teams that I work with, um, that's something that comes through a lot. And
Yes, yes,
I
but I
think
haven't.
it's
Like I don't think I'd sign a game with a team that was all remote.
interesting.
You know, yes, yes, and we've had groups come in to pitch games, and we pass on them, and then like a couple years later, you still haven't heard about that game. Like I knew that one. So yes, yes, I would have really a hard time to sign a game that is 100% remote. To be honest, so
Even
there
if
has to
it
be.
was a
Yeah.
proven group of people with an incredible idea and a great prototype and it showed all the promise, that would
Well,
still
the problem
be,
is if it's a proven group of people, then they've worked together before in one space. You
yeah,
know, that gets back to my point about you had these AAA studios with hot shots in every department and they fail. You
mm,
know, like like an example in the news just yesterday or this morning. You know, a bunch of AAA guys in this studio, they shut it down for some. We don't know why. But
you're
the
talking about the Netflix thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But the so so yeah, so that's the problem. If you know these all these guys are proven folks, um, but it's just like ugh, you know, if they're really that proven, they've been together. So I would have to. So if this team actually made a game and they were 100% remote and they came to us for a second game, I would be much more willing. But I would really be to be honest with you, would have a hard time signing an all remote project.
That's fair. I mean, you have the you have the experience and the well, I mean, that's a fair assessment.
Mhm.
And also that's how you guys choose to do business. It's smart. Um, I probably I probably would I'm probably like 70-30 on that with you.
It's
I
fair.
get what you're saying. I get
It's
what you're
fair.
saying. Um, but um, you know, if you have that kind of principle that you're standing on, then you got to keep going forward with it.
Mhm.
All right, we got to talk about Space Marine because it's awesome. I've
Thank you.
been really enjoying it. I'm not quite finished with it yet. I kind of don't want to finish it because I'm really enjoying it. I'm one of those people who like savors every corner, and even though I don't really need to, um, and I've kind of already figured out that there's nothing in some of these corners, but it's still fun to go into them.
Yes,
Um,
I know. Especially if you're playing only by yourself, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I
So
will play with friends after, but for
yes. So
the
your AI buddies are not stealing your ammo. So you know you can you don't need to go into every corner because you'll be picking up more than you actually need. But when you're
yeah,
with your humans, they'll be stealing all your stuff. So you got to like search around a little more.
this this game is awesome, man. I mean, it's a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about here. I have a bunch of notes on it. We'll never ever get through all my notes on it, but like couple things I want to point out. This game is I can't put my finger on it, but it's like extremely nostalgic for a certain period and type of game, but it's super modern in its
Yes.
approach and execution. And I feel like, and I didn't really understand a lot of this till we were talking together today, but like, I feel like a lot of the stuff you're talking about from it is in this game, at least on a, um, on a creative overlay level and maybe guiding how the game played because it's very like, yeah, I've read a bunch of interviews and stuff with you about this game and, talking about like this weird circle of influence of how, you know, I saw a
It's a
crate.
little weird.
I
Yes.
saw a crate last night. I was like, oh, there's the Gears of War symbol, kind of, and the swords and all of that. It's very like almost like a genre throwback in a way, but it's like got connective tissue to
Yeah.
all these other games, and it's
Yep.
it's really comforting. It made me feel like um, a bit nostalgic in a way that was kind of warm and fuzzy while I'm doing all these amazing things. The other incredible thing is this super tight core gameplay loop that is
Hmm.
really layered. It's really
Mm.
fun. It makes you feel really powerful, and it's like true fantasy fulfillment. That
Yes.
the idea of the melee and the shooting combo, the parrying and the dodging, the jetpacks, these epic finishing moves, all that stuff is very well done. And it goes back to what you said earlier. You guys clearly found the fun in this loop
Early.
and iterated on it to a point where it was like super tight, super perfect, exactly what it was. You know, putting these slow moving players with these crazy fast moving swarms of aliens. Like there's a lot of super experienced, smart game design and game development in there.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
really good.
Yes, and I wasn't even in the trenches on that one, to be honest. Dmitry Gigorenko is our game director. He worked on World War Z, but we worked together on Quake Champions and stuff. The but yes, the team really did hit, and I've said this before, the most perfect power fantasy feel. And one of the things that I talk to other teams about, and now that we have Space Marine, it's much easier for me to do this, is you really need to like, and I explain this terribly, but when you're playing and you're fighting, you get these little serotonin drops in your head, and you feel good when you're like killing these aliens, and it feels good. You hit it, and you get this little. I'm happy. It makes me happy, and then I'm gonna do this more because it makes me happy. And you get this little loop. So games that can't find that loop, like if it's like there's a driving game that we're working on, and the team wants that serotonin levels to explode in your head. When you feel the drive, it's just like you feel it's so perfect, and it feels so good that this minute to minute loop is what motivates you. So they're working on just that. And there's this shooter that it's like, what, killing the guys, you know killing bad guys doesn't have to be it. I mean, it could be what they drop, in classic World of Warcraft games, the loop is killing guys is kind of boring, but when they drop something, you're like, oh, and then you get excited. So, games need to find what actually gets you happy when you play the game. Is it the way it feels? Is it the way it looks? Is it the way it sounds? And then once you find that, drive to it, like, so it goes back to finding the fun. But it's like, what exactly is what really makes you play 30 seconds past the first 30 seconds? Not what keeps you for an hour. What keeps you like every 5 seconds? What keeps you in that loop? And
Yeah,
Space Marine nails it.
it's like the Halo example, right? Halo has a famously incredible um, core loop that is just
Yes.
impossible to put your controller down. I
Yes.
mean, when you're playing Space Marine 2, you know, when you're in the thick of it and there's, dozens, if not, more than dozens
Mhm.
of aliens swarming around you, and it's like overpowering, but you manage to get that finishing move off, and it's like, fuck yeah, it's like, it's
Mhm.
like you have this frustration and tension and release.
Yes.
And that is a
Yes.
one
And
of
your
the
brain
one of
feels
the
happy, and you're
yeah
like, I want more of that.
yeah it's one of the better moment to moment games I've played in a long time. It's really
Yes.
really fun. I played I'm not like a Warhammer IP nerd.
Hmm.
I know about it. I know tons of people who are. I did play the first Space Marine when it came out, which seems crazy that it came out in 2011. When you came into Saber, was Space Marine already going?
Hmm. Yes, yeah,
Okay.
they signed it in probably a couple months before I got there, and but the combination is that guys in the team are uber Warhammer nerds,
Hmm.
and I say that with love.
Clearly,
Um, yes,
clearly.
and then you know I I joke that our game director Dimitri, he will, when he wants to do something, he'll dig a trench, he'll jump into that trench, and he'll defend his position, with every last ounce of his effort. Um, so, but it just kind of goes back to that. It wasn't a giant team. We didn't have hundreds of people on Space Marine for a long time.
So
It was
so
a
tell
handful of
tell
dudes.
us how many people are on that team.
Well, I think that at peak got 200 something.
Yeah.
But again, remember, we moved so many people back and forth.
Hmm.
Some guys were working on Space Marine a couple of days, some guys working on JP or Toxic. JP is Jackson Park, and Toxic is Toxic Commando. The But in the beginning, it was a handful of people, handful, and trying to get just a
That loop.
Space Marine to walk, get that feeling good, make sure Games Workshop is happy, and then start swinging that sword around. Make sure that feels good. There was not hundreds of people. No one was making art. This is all gray box,
Yeah.
and looked like a gray dude in a gray box trying to hit a gray monster, and that is key. Yeah, it took us a long time to make it, but we didn't have hundreds of people for the first 2 years.
Yeah, but you
That is
bring
the
up a
thing.
point.
That is the thing.
Yeah, you bring up a point. It sounds mundane, but like if if it didn't feel good to just walk your player around and have that heavy feel of this kind of
Hmm.
armored Hulk walking around, that would be you probably the game would fail just on that alone because
Yes.
no one would want to just suffer through it,
Yes. So
And
why are you building levels if you don't even know if the guy walks right? That's what
right,
teams do
and
all
like
the time.
yeah, and
They
if you
do it
don't
all the
have
time.
the walk right, you have no idea how big your level needs to be. You have
No,
no idea about sight lines. You have none of the
no.
things that you need to make the level exist without
Yes.
understanding how they walk. Like Gears of
I,
War when it first came out, brilliantly used those, you know, if you look at the design of Gears of War, it's like a circle and a tube and a circle and a tube. And
yep.
those tubes, they took everything away from you, made the walk slow, and that's where you got this, these huge character moments with your character. But it was fun to do it because it
Yes.
felt good, and there was
Yes.
nothing
So
else to do.
on Doom 2016, we everyone knows that we had some Doom reboots, but there was one level, I think it was called Combat dot map. Can't remember exactly, but something like that. It was one level that the team just kept working on, kept working on, kept working. It was not a big, and it had like the demons. It had the verticality, got the glory kills, the movement. One map, and as soon as that map was awesome, then everybody just built all the maps. Was great, and that's exactly how we did it with Space Marine. Just focus on something small. I know I keep saying this, but just today I had this call, this conversation with the team, so I know it happens to us. People build too much stuff without really understanding the character, and they're like, it's content. No, it's stuff. You're building stuff. You're not building content, because content
Yeah.
is how you know it's going to work.
Yeah, content is what people actually experience, not
Yes,
not the stuff that inevitably gets cut after 6 months of building it because
yes,
you didn't understand how the swarm worked versus the walk versus, you know,
yes.
the crazy kill moves. It's all a very delicate dance to get that, again, keep
Mm,
talking about that the core loop, but I think it's the star of this game in my opinion.
yes,
Um, it's a
yes,
very powerful game feel wrapped in a really
yes,
awesome IP.
yes.
So I did
And
mention,
there's no gameplay there's nothing that you've played in Space Marine 2 that you've never seen before.
No,
It's just done perfect.
it's just a different take on it in that in the frame of Warhammer and Space
Mm-hmm.
Marine. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's really nothing new about jumping up in the air in the jetpack and targeting someone and hitting a button
Yep.
and coming down. But is it fun? Yep. Does it
Yep.
fit with what we're doing? Yep. Does it make the core loop expand and
Mm-hmm.
feel, layered and powerful? Yep. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's really I think people do get caught up in I'm going to reinvent the wheel with everything that we're doing, and if those games ever ship, it's obvious that those are there's
I know.
always something
That,
lacking.
yes, yes. I've joked that there should be a law passed in the video game industry where if it's a first-person shooter, the configuration on your controller needs to be the same.
That's actually probably not a bad idea. I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
Yes.
yeah,
I always joke that just copy code.
if you're let's move the buttons around and get cute with this, it's just
No,
not going to
I
work.
always tell people just copy Call of Duty.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what everybody knows. Just copy that and go. The
Yep.
buttons should be the Call of Duty buttons, and then just if you need to make new buttons for your game, fine. But start with Call of Duty buttons. So
Sage advice.
mhm.
I did bring up Swarm Tech. I want to talk a little bit about that because one thing that is in this game that I'm having a hard time remembering if I've really ever seen it that way before is the way these enemies
Yes.
swarm around. I mean, I'll give you a couple examples. The kind of boss fight where the gargoyles are on the radar towers.
Oh yes.
That was so hard, by the way. That
I
was
know.
so hard.
It took me a couple times too. Yeah.
That was really, really challenging. And I am playing the game on easy because I want to get through as much of it before our talk. But I actually not really noticing it being easy. Honestly, I'm having a challenge with it. So good on
That one is
on the
surprisingly
developers.
hard. It is.
Yeah,
Because you get
I mean, there's a lot going on there.
Because you get screwed up on your ground. The guys on the ground keep you distracted, and God bless them, your two AI guys, they're not as helpful as humans are in that particular, because I've played it with real humans, and it's like, this is way easier with people that can think outside the box. So
yeah, I definitely swore at those guys a few times on
yes,
that one.
yes,
But
yes.
But the flying through the air and the swarming, awesome. The other stuff, kind of like these endless encounters while swarming, but the level where you had to use the kind of flamethrower to kind of move through
the bugs,
the
whatever they are
rats and the
called.
bugs, or yeah, that was really interesting. So I'm having trouble remembering or finding another example of kind of AI that did that on that scale so well. It's really well done. Like that had to be a big key part
Yes.
early on. Talk about that a little bit.
Yep. So our swarm technology was first created for World War Z. So if you play World War Z, you'll be able to see it. Yes. Yeah. And but this is the next generation. I called it Swarm Engine 2, and then the game director made fun of me. And he's like, "This is better Swarm. Stop saying it's 2." And so there's two things in play. There's the Swarm engine and then the AI director. So in World War Z, first iteration of the Swarm tech, you have this kind of large entity, which is the Swarm, and then it kind of hits a breaking point. And in World War Z, when the zombies would break off, they're zombies, so they weren't that smart. But it's okay, they're zombies, but what the team really did a great job with for Space Marine 2 is that when the swarm hits the breaker and it breaks into Tyranids each Tyranid is thinking, and they're thinking about killing you. But then that feeds into the AI director, and the AI director kind of controls the battle. And the AI director, it knows how much ammo you have, what gun you're using, your state. It watches you, so it orchestrates the battle to make you feel like you were going to die. Like, this is overwhelming. You're going to die, but somehow you come through. You make it, and it's like, yes, I made it. But I can tell you, the way I play is different from the way you play than anyone else. But yet, I mean, am I right? Did you feel many times playing that game that you were completely overwhelmed, but somehow you pulled it off and you survived?
Every time.
Yes,
Every time. I have
that is
never been more excited to get on an elevator like in my life. Like
yes.
thank you for putting those elevators in the
That's a
game.
swarm.
I
That's
mean,
the AI director. It orchestrates the experience where you feel just like that.
yeah,
Everyone that
we
plays the
talk
game feels
about
that.
the gargoyles on the radar,
Mhm.
the towers encounter. I think I probably did that 10 or 12 times.
Oh my God,
And
sorry.
no, but I'm also like analyzing it too. Like the curse of making games is you can't really ever totally enjoy them anymore. But but it never felt like, oh, I came around the corner and there's that guy there. Like it just
Yes.
never felt like that. It felt totally dynamic and fresh and
Yep. It's
yes,
the AI director
really cool.
throwing stuff at you. Yeah.
And
I
I
mean, 12 is
imagine,
excessive. Sorry about that. I mean, three's the sweet spot. 3, 4. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, I mean, I was playing it on a harder difficulty, and I did go back and I went
Ah,
back
that helps.
and switched
That
it.
helps.
Yeah, but it wasn't unenjoyable. It felt like it was supposed to be hard. Felt like
Yes.
I got to run around and do these things, and I've got these guys who are sort of helping me, and wish they were more helpful. But
I know that battle is really hard for them. You have to, they're Space Marines. They're more muscle than smart. It's a little
plus,
complicated.
I mean, we didn't even talk about how we're on a tilted
Yes,
ground. Like it's
yes.
completely tilted. Um, so all that works brilliantly together and makes like
Hmm.
a really fun experience. And when you have those moments, like I brought up Gears of War for this reason earlier, is like you have those moments where it's just like, oh, and you're
Yes.
just like, it's coming again. And one of the things I liked about it is there every time something new and interesting happened where it kind of amped up, it was unexpected in a way that felt really, really fun. And
Hmm.
I, I'd be honest, it's hard for me to remember the nuances of the first Space Marine. But how did you guys take, the expectation of the fans and for
Hmm.
sure the rabid um, Warhammer community, like that's a very important thing to get right. Feels like
Hmm.
you got it right because I felt right at home playing Space Marine, even though, like I said, it's been whatever 13 years since I played the other one. So like, you know, how did you guys tackle that? Because it seems like it's pulled off really well.
Yes. Uh, like the two parts of your question, you know, um, on the franchise side, we worked really closely with Games Workshop. They were really strong partners. They are the shepherds of their universe, and they are really good shepherds. Uh, and our team internally was very, very hardcore, Space Marine fans. Um, and Games Workshop has a good process to help us and guide us. So they're great to work with. And then on the second combat, it's melee and ranged. So the first game was definitely more melee, if I remember correctly. Yes. Um, but it wasn't that deep. So what the team tried to do, and you mentioned this earlier with you played for a couple hours and then you got the jetpack and you felt it was kind of you felt comfortable with the mechanics, you felt comfortable with the melee and the range, and then using your abilities. Then you got one more thing. So it was layering the gameplay mechanics on top of the core experience. So there were in Space Marine 2, there are far more defensive maneuvers, counter maneuvers, there were different attacks than in the original game. But in people's memories of the original game, since you haven't played it in 10 years, it was much deeper than than it
Mm.
actually was. So layering on these layers of gameplay, the team really focused on that. First melee, and then they integrated range, and they integrated melee and range together. So and the team was very good about not moving to the next layer until that layer was good. So lots of hitting Tyranids over the head with a sword in a gray box for a long time until that was felt really good. And then those layers. So the focus was extend the core combat loop of the original with diversity um, and I bet you felt that it was really easy to kill somebody, but after a while, it was just very much like the more skill you had, the easier it was, and the more enjoyable it was. So it was easy to get into, but more difficult to master, which is great. But yeah, so
Yeah.
going deep onto each of those layers was something that was a core focus. It's hard to explain how to make
Nah,
melee system attacks deeper, but hope
well,
that
I
makes sense.
mean, it. I always felt like I had other options to
Yes,
to take on the
yes,
challenge, no matter what was happening. Like, you know what, the sword's not working. It's not working for this thing. I need to switch up and do something different. And I never felt like trapped into like
yes.
playing in a certain way. If I remember correctly, the first Space Marine, this might be wrong, but I seem to remember you could only get health when you did some kind of cool kill. Maybe I'm misremembering that,
Maybe,
but
you know,
it felt like I remember that feeling very unforgiving, even though I liked it, and the change up with the stims. I may be remembering this wrong, but I
I think
appreciated
so, but
the
I can't remember exactly either.
yeah. Um,
Yes.
so so how did you guys like what did you think was most important to honor about the IP and continuing Titus's story? Like that's a very
Yes.
um, hard thing to do as well, with so much time in between.
Yes, the Titus's story. You know, the creative director, when he set out to write the story, he wanted to Oliver. Uh, he wanted to stay true to the codex of the what Space Marine believes, but Space Marines, if you just leave them, they're very straightforward. So he wanted to tell a more humanizing story of Titus to make players feel a little closer and have more familiarity with Titus, but yet adhere to kind of the rules of the world. So I think he did a good job by balancing you know, um, your two squad mates and their opinions and their beliefs, and then on like what Titus's story went through. So even though Titus is a hardcore space marine who's like kill, 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 emperor, yes, there is conflict in him. There is experience in him. He senses right and wrong. Like there's more to him than just a very shallow space marine. So that I think really worked well for the game. Obviously making sure that the world was perfect when it comes to its iconography and colors and structures and the chapter configurations and the technology. That was really important. But I think what made it more than just a Warhammer license, um, fan service is the story of Titus, which was a little bit different, a little bit more unique, and had a little more humanizing form to it than what most people would normally associate with a Space Marine character.
I've seen you talk a little bit about you don't have to have played the first Space
Yes,
Marine.
that's important. Yes.
Yeah. Like, so how did that influence kind of the gameplay and design decisions around brand new players?
Yes. So that's one of the reasons why Titus's story is 200 years later. So it's not like a cliffhanger that you're discovering. We have enough exposition in the game to kind of explain his backstory, and so he's understandable as any kind of person with this backstory that happened 200 years ago. It wasn't like last episode. So people, there's enough separation where people feel like, okay, it's a new story, got it. And then we do. I mean, you play the game. We tell people how to crouch and hit stuff, and
Mhm.
hit your first Tyranid, and then hit your first Tyranid like this, and then grab them like this. So we have that very classic kind of tutorial. But I think separating the games by 200 years really helped, because then people didn't
Yeah.
feel, yeah,
Yep. And I will say that I mean, I wasn't a new player, but I actually did take the time to pay attention to all the tutorial stuff, and that was well
helps
done as well.
helps.
Really
It
well
does,
done.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, especially the deflect, grab, and shoot. That one is people have struggled with.
Yeah, and I have to say I still, I'm more than halfway through the game. I still haven't mastered it, but when you do, it
It's awesome.
feels
Yes,
really good. So
yes.
so by all accounts, this game on every level has been successful um, for you guys,
Hmm.
and from both satisfying the IP to making a great game to, I'm sure, supporting a bunch of internal kind of company and financial pillars. Like it's been a successful
It
endeavor.
changed everything for us. It really does. Yes, World War Z was hugely successful. SnowRunner was a sleeper hit that everyone loved, but um, but this changes everything. It really does help all other teams. The just make better games. I mean, even A Quiet Place. I know it came out last week, and there wasn't much that we could have done after the shipping of Space Marine. But when you have a great game and it's great and it's coming down the road, it just makes everyone else work. Not work harder, but just work to be great. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Totally. So what is how do you define success for a Saber game?
The well, if it's profitable, and sadly, there's lots of games that are super fun, in the industry, super good games, super fun, that were never profitable, which is sad.
I've made a few of
But
those.
yes, yes, and the uh, no, like a game comes out, we're proud of the reception, and it ends up making money. I mean, let's be honest, this is a business, and games don't. Every game does not have to score an 85. Like, A Quiet Place is scoring exactly what we thought it was going to score, but we had it scoped right. We had the budget right. This game is already profitable.
I mean,
So yes,
Metacritic, bless their hearts, but I think that, like, I don't know, I think long term it's very damaging for how we make games. If you're going, well, this game's got to be a 67 to meet our, like, whatever the number
hmm
is. This game needs to be an 89, right? It's very, I mean, no one can make a game and to towards a predicted number. It just
no, it's
that
so
doesn't.
dumb when people
It's
say that.
so stupid. It really
It's
is.
like, what score are you looking for? 100?
Yeah, yeah. Like who is making a game? Like I really want to make an 86 here. Really want that. No, everyone wants to make 100.
Yes,
Anything less than 100 doesn't matter.
yes,
And nobody
yes,
nobody tries less because their game is forecasted to be an 80. It's like they're still making a game to be a 100. Like
yes.
it doesn't make any sense.
I
It's
know. I
it's
always
so
I always
messed
laugh
up.
about that too. You know
So
that. Yeah.
so so then what is, so this game has changed the fortunes of the company in a lot of ways. And like what do the next 5-10 years look like for you guys?
Yeah. So we're gonna keep doing what we do well. Games take so long to make, but I think that we're working on training up our smaller teams that are, we have a game that should get some press when we announce it soon. But it's a small team, and this is they haven't made it too many games, but so we're training them up, and training them up means we're going to work through making a game with them, and again, it's reasonably scoped. Has a reasonable budget, and it'll do reasonably well. And for this team, that's good. That's a big success for us, because then their next game is going to be, better scoped, better reviewed, and do better. And then because again, the team that made, the core team that made Space Marine had been working together for a while. So yes, so organic growth and improvement by our junior, newer, smaller teams, for lack of a better description. Focus on the big hits. We have obviously, Jurassic Park, Toxic Commando. We have some other, titles that we've announced that are going to be big for us, and focus on that technology. That's our technology, that has the that we used, and then expand a runner
So
series.
Swarm Tech can be used in anything.
Well, it's not like it can't be stuck in Unreal, but it can.
Yeah.
But it's like our driving technology. The engine that powers SnowRunner. It has pieces of tech that's in Space Marine.
Great.
Yes,
cool. That's awesome.
But so yeah, and then if we have opportunities if we find good titles to publish, we will publish them. Working with third party teams, we'll publish some of our own stuff if we make it. And we also like the fact that we are kind of publisher and platform agnostic at Saber, so we can work. For instance, we can work with Activision on something. We can work with EA on something. We can work with Focus on something. We can work with Sony and something special, and Microsoft something special. So it's nice to be kind of like the Switzerland of developers. We're not really threatening. It's not like we're not going to work with you because you work with them. It's like, we're Saber guys. We just make cool games. We're not causing any problems. So
that's how it should be.
Yes. Yeah. So it gives us flexibility, to work with different IP holders. I mean, Paramount, like we announced our Avatar game with Paramount, and because Paramount is the holder for World War Z, but Universal obviously is the holder for Jurassic Park, and then Games Workshop, so it's nice to be able to work with these big companies that, they do kind of compete, but they're like, yeah, it's cool working with Saber. So
that's the best place to be.
That was long. That was rambling. Sorry.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yes.
Really.
So focus on the teams, and continue to leverage kick-ass IPs people like.
Yeah, it's interesting. One final thought before we go. When you mentioned the part about like fostering these teams, these juniorish teams to make better and better and better games, that's like not really something that happens anymore. And if you parallel that to the music business, that's how it used to be. You would sign an artist, they'd put their first album out, and it'd be nice to have a hit on the first album, but the record company was looking at album 4, right? And that doesn't exist anymore. Everything's you got one day to be live in the marketplace, and if it's not the thing, it's not the thing.
Yes, and just get on base.
Yeah,
get on base with your team.
I think it's really important.
People on base, you're going to win the game.
Yeah. Keep doing that. The industry needs it for sure. Tim, it was great getting to meet you. Again, I probably haven't done you proud for all the things that you've been a part of today, but you're truly a really important part of the fabric of games that we play today because of all the games you've made, and really appreciate you coming on the podcast today. It was great talking to you, and really appreciate it.
It was fun. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much, but yes, thank you.
No,
thank you for having me.
This is a great episode. People are going to love it.
Cool. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Tim.